start. Okay, so I'm going to start with a short introduction from myself. My name is Dr. Alina Shirazi, and I'm one of the mentor med exam expert. And today we are going to cover two topics, and these two are our most important topic. Number one is the transgender, and one of the tasks related to the transgender, some of my UK-based colleagues, they have been experienced in their exam. Okay, and the second one is the cord blood sampling, and nowadays in NHS they focus a lot on the cord blood sampling, although this is not a recall, but there are chances that some of the tasks related to these sort of things may come in the exam. Okay, so the first one related to the general gynae is transgender, so we will discuss some part as a general gynae and then later on as a part of the subfertility. Okay, so Sanam is here with me. Hello, Sanam.
Hello. Assalamualaikum, Alina. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Sanam, this is the task for you. You have only one slide. You have 2 minutes to read and then 10 minutes for the performance. Okay.
Okay. I cannot turn on my camera. I don't know. It's disabled from there, right?
I can't see, but it's really important to turn on because then I will see your expression, the way you're talking, and all of these things.
I have turned it on.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Okay.
Yes, I can see you. I can see you. Okay. So 2 minutes start. Ready?
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So start. So hello, I am Dr. Sanam, one of the doctor in the ER today. And can I confirm your name and age, please?
Yes, doctor. My name is William John, and I'm here with my partner. She's Lizzie.
Okay. And how may I address you?
John, Mr. John is fine for me.
Okay. So, Mr. John, I can see from the letter here that you have some complaint regarding a lump down below. So, would you like to tell me regarding that more?
Oh, yes, doctor. I have been feeling this lump for the past 4-5 days. So initially it was small, not very painful, but now it's painful. It's hard for me to sit. Even it's hard for me to do, intercourse. So now it's bothering me a lot. So I called my GP and he said, you can go to in the hospital for the assessment. That's why I'm here.
So, Mr. John, will that be okay if I will ask you a few questions to know more about your condition? And then I will examine you also in the presence of chaperone. And then we will discuss the management options available for you.
Okay, it's fine, doctor, but can my partner, she will stay with me?
Mr. John, it's up to you. If you want to be along with your partner, or if you want, I can take you to a separate room.
No, I want her to be with me.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
So, Mr. John, I want to ask you regarding your complaint that you told me you have this lump and it's painful. So, do you have any discharge from down below?
There's no discharge. This is just a lump that is bothering me. I haven't noticed that.
And what about your waterworks?
Like I have uh, sometimes some pain in passing urine, and I have to rush to the toilet a lot more for the past few days. So maybe it's just because of this discomfort, this pain, I believe.
Have you tried anything so far?
No, I haven't tried anything.
So, would you like to tell me that are you taking any medications or hormones?
Yes, yes, I'm on hormones, testosterone hormones, for the past 2 years.
Okay. And what about you are taking your hormones? Okay. And I will ask you a few personal question. It may sound intrusive for you. So may you mind to tell me that what type of sex practice you are doing?
We use sex toys.
Okay.
And yes, and she's like a new partner. Actually, we are just been in relationship for the past 2 months, and we use certain sort of few, you know what, like few sort of devices. They are available online. So we used to use it as a sex for a sex. Yes.
Okay.
For
So
yeah, we prefer to do sometimes vaginal, sometimes anal.
Okay. So have you ever been having sexually shared infection or your partner?
I don't know about my partner, but I had a sexually shared infection when I was 18, and it was well treated.
Okay. And do you have any surgery down below?
No, not yet. My doctor, he has planned me, but according to him, I have to use these hormones for the few years, and then they will plan some surgeries for me.
Yes. Okay. So are you allergic to some medications or any?
Not at all. No.
Okay. Any medical history of concern for which you follow your GP?
No. I'm fit and well.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I'm a university student and do some part-time job.
Okay. And what about your support at home?
We live together, so my partner, she's with me. You can ask her. Well sported, yes. She's very sportive, very lovely.
That's good. That's good. And do you smoke?
No.
Do you drink alcohol?
No.
Okay. Any recreational drug?
No, nothing.
So thank you, Mr. John, for sharing your personal information. And now I'd like to examine you in the presence of a chaperone in a separate room. And I need to check your tummy, and I may need to check your down below the internal part. I will do a very gentle examination with a very small speculum, just to know, just to see if there is any discharge, and I may need to take some swabs, and then I will just assess this swelling, and then accordingly I will discuss the management option. So, Mr. John, as per your urine, as per your reports here, the test done for your urine is normal. It means you are not having any infection there. And after examination, I can see that you are having a small cyst, a fluid-filled sac on the inner area, inner part of your lower genitals. And usually, this is called Bartholin cyst or Bartholin abscess. So, do you have any idea about it, or you want me to explain you?
No, doctor, what is this? Is this
Yeah,
something that is worrying for me?
no, Mr. John. Actually, it's a treatable condition, and it's a gland, uh, like a sac, and it produce some fluid secretions to moisten your inner area through a duct. So if in sometimes what happen that 2 out of 100 persons like you in the tubes get blocked and it cause a swelling. So we have a different treatment options available for you, either to do nothing, but as you are having pain, we may need to start an antibiotic for you for 7 days, and then we will reassess you. And if in case your pain is subsided and the swelling is reduced, then you may not need further treatment. But if in case it is not subsided and it is painful still and it's increasing, or it's not affecting the antibiotic, then we may need to do a small surgery.
Oh, why
That
this happened with
surgery,
me, doctor? Why this happened with me? What is the
as I
reason
told
that why?
you, yeah, as I told you that some persons like you, it can happen, it can get blocked without any cause, but it could be due to some infection or due to using of the sex toys, which may lead to infection, and that could be one of the cause. And yeah, so you want to carry on the further management?
What do you mean, doctor? Like to people like me? What do you mean by this? What do you mean? What like me?
Yeah, the persons like you, Mr. John. Yeah, the persons like you, Mr. John. The person
Like
like
you
you, yeah,
who change their
yeah,
sex
like
are more
you.
at this condition?
No, Mr. John, it's not like that, and it's not a matter that you have changed the sex and it happened with you. But I mean to say, the person like you who are having uh, the vagina, this Bartholin glands are present normally, and they get blocked in case if there is any, they get blocked and they get infected. So apparently you are Mr. John, and you will carry on like that. But just now, currently, till you go for any further surgery, we may need to treat your condition, this condition, to relieve you from pain and swelling. Does it?
Okay, so you're going to
Yeah.
give me antibiotics first. Okay.
Yeah, I may need to give you antibiotic after ruling out allergy, and if doesn't work, I will reassess you after 7 days, and then we may need to do a small surgery if it is not effective. And the surgery will be either a
Very
daycare or either
It's
it could
very
be
painful. It's hard for me to even sit. So what I can do at
okay.
home? I even can't drive.
Yeah, so you can drive, your partner can take to you for the driving, and if it is really very painful, you can get admitted and we can do a surgery today if you are telling that if it's not tolerable. But if in case it's tolerable and you want to try an antibiotic, you can, your partner can drive through and you can take these antibiotics, and I will give you some painkillers as well as you can sit in a, what we say, it's a bath. This is like water bath. You can do it 3 to 4 times and keep the area clean. And if you want to try
Okay,
this method, it's okay.
finish, Sanam, your time finish. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so it's the time to give feedback. Okay, give feedback to yourself first. You know, these sort of the tasks are very difficult in terms of communication.
Yes, yes. Our feedback is like, I was confused when you told me what do you mean by me, because I don't want to tell her you are
Yes,
still
because
a
you
female,
have to
because
talk in
already he's a
general.
man. He wants to pretend to be a
You have
man.
to talk in
Yeah.
general. You have to
Yeah.
talk in
So
general.
that's why I
Don't
told her
point out.
person. That's why I told
No,
her the
you can say that
person. Yeah.
this is, you can
Yeah.
draw in front of him. You can draw, you can see this is, don't say vagina. Don't ever use word of vagina in front of these persons, because they become very hyper, because they think that you are judging them and you are still considering him as a female. Okay, you can say, see, this is the genital part. Very good, you use the word genital part. This is the genital part, and this is a Bartholin gland, and 1 to 2 out of the 100 ladies are at increased risk. 1 to 2 in 100. Okay, so like, this is so much common. This is so much common. Okay, and this, and why this, when he asked why this happened, then you can say the one point is that you have missed some of the points in history that you would be able to explain him. Okay, if I talk about the history, like okay, first of all, we cover what you have been done well, and then I let you know what could have been done in a better way. Just one second. Okay. Okay, so just because the first thing, because this topic is little bit different and difficult for even all of us, even for me, I always feel this topic very difficult and different. But nowadays in NHS, we usually encounter very commonly these sort of couples. Okay, very commonly. So that's why they have given you people such sort of scenario in the exam. Okay, so I put some of the pictures to make the things little bit more clear. If you can see here, what is a trans? So today we are going to discuss things related to the trans men, not the trans woman. Okay, maybe we will discuss about the trans woman later on. If you can see, this is a lady, this is a man. So if a lady adopts certain character, like biologically she is a female, but she wants to like a male, then we called it as a trans man. Okay, so it is something which is related to the behavior. Okay, it's not something related to the intersex, which is something literally very different. Okay, so as Sanam have asked about the hormone therapy, and this is very good, and he explained basically about that he's on testosterone therapy. So aim of that therapy is to increase muscle mass, decrease fat mass, increase facial hairs. It also produce male pattern baldness, increase libido, cause hypertrophy of clitoris. It is recommended that trans men consider hysterectomy after 4 to 5 years of testosterone. I put this table here just to let you people know that in A&E, in general gynae, maybe you will see a trans man with a vagina. Okay, because after genital surgery, usually these sort of people should be seen by the surgeons. It's not by you. Okay, then it would be literally a complicated case one. Maybe they will call you to come in the surgery A&E and assess this man. Maybe they will call you for that. But initially, they will. The surgeons are the one who will assess this sort of men. Okay, but with the vagina, they will. These sort of the patients straight away come towards your gynae emergency. Okay, so it is recommended that trans men consider a hysterectomy after 4 to 5 years of testosterone therapy to reduce the risk of endometrial cancer caused by unopposed estrogen produced by achromatization of testosterone. And if they will, some of the, I have seen one of the couple in which the trans man, he said he is afraid of any of the surgery. So maybe they will not consider any surgery, but they want to be like this. Apparently as a man, but they have vagina, they don't want to go for any surgery with the uterus. Okay, for these people you have to offer 2 yearly ultrasound if no hysterectomy to measure endometrial thickness. Okay, so the patients are also offered access to the gender reassignment surgery, which is available on NHS. So in NHS it's available. If someone has some gender dysphoria, okay, you can go to the NHS. In NHS, the surgeries are available. They can offer surgeries. But when? for a patient to be approved for this surgery, they must spend a verifiable time, at least 12 months, living and thriving in a gender role, okay, that is congruent with their gender identity. Okay, so for 12 months, they have to spend for the 12 months in that role, and then they would be eligible for the surgery. Okay, for this, they don't have to pay. They don't have to pay for this. Okay, so what sort of gender assignment surgery for the trans men? Mastectomy, hysterectomy, vaginectomy, salpingo-oophorectomy, phalloplasty, urethroplasty, scroplasty, and implantation of penile and testicular prosthesis. If these sort of the trans men who have these procedures, you are not going to see it, they will straight away present to the surgical emergency, where they should be seen by MTD, which include the consultant gynecologist, the plastic surgeons. Okay, so it's very less likely you will see certain sort of the role players in the exam who have these surgeries. Okay, so mostly in exam there would be a trans man, less likely to have a trans woman even. Okay. Okay, so one point, Sanam, and everyone, I just want to let you people know, don't ever think that these trans men have a female partner. They can have a male partner as well. Okay, you get my point. They can have a male partner. If they have a male partner, they are increased risk of STI. You have to offer her effective contraception barrier method. These all of things. Okay, so please mute your mic, please. Bhavya, can you like yeah?
उसकी वजह से दर्द हो रहा हो.
Yeah, mute mic. Okay, Sanam, are you there with me?
Yes, Alina, I'm there.
Have you understand it? Their partner can be a male, their partner can be a female. Okay, okay. So now comes towards the template. Okay, so you have asked about the pain. Okay, but and that role player explained about I'm having severe pain, I'm not being able to sit. You have to show some sort of empathy. Okay, today I want to see empathy on your face. Okay. So because these patients, they need more support. They have some underlying psychological disorder. They have some underlying depression. So they need more support. You have to be very, very empathetic for them. Very empathetic. Oh, I'm so sorry you're suffering from this. Don't worry. I'm here to help you out. I will sort out your problem as early as possible. Will that be okay if I could give you some analgesia first? And then we will talk once you feel very much comfortable. Okay? So there is, because in these sort of the task, there's a lot of emphasis on the communication, and this sort of communication also comes under patient safety as well. Okay, so feeling of lump, the role player explained, as you asked about the open-ended question, that this is a small, now increase in size. You can ask about the fever, because if it's a very huge abscess, then he can be septic, he can develop some fever. We have asked about the urinary symptom very well and explained about the report. Okay, so you have inquired. Okay, so one thing, Sanam, as you know what, when you were talking to me, I was a little bit hesitant while explaining you about my sexual practice. So whenever you see a couple, particularly in these sort of scenarios, do ask from them. Okay, so you know, Mr. John, today I just want to ask you very personal questions related to you, related to your sexual life. Okay, will that be okay to discuss everything in front of your partner, or you want me to discuss with you alone? Okay, do ask about these things. Okay, so because it comes under the patient safety, you have to respect the confidentiality. That's why like I was behaving like a little bit hesitant to explaining you about the sexual practice. Okay, and do ask about the pain on intercourse, because these men, they are receiving testosterone therapy. They can cause vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness. Okay, so do ask about the pain. Okay, after signposting, do ask about the number of partners. There is no hard and fast rule that they have only one partner, the female partner. Maybe he has a male partner as well. Okay, and you cannot ask about the male partner in front of his partner. Have you get my point?
Then how, Alina, see, I ask you that, can you tell me about your sexual practice? You said that, she's my partner, she's a female, and since 2 months I am in relationship.
Yes, just recently, the last 2 months. So you have to ask.
So now in front of,
Yes.
Yeah, tell me what I.
Now do you have no
Yeah.
choice because you haven't respect his confidentiality. You have no choice. You have to
Okay.
respect the confidentiality in the start of the task. That will that be okay if I ask you very personal questions related to your lifestyle, related to your sexual practice, or you can say related to your sex life in front of your partner, or you want to discuss it in private. Okay. And if even if you don't want to use these words, you can say, I just want to ask very personal questions from you today. Okay, will that be okay if I continue? Because they do understand you. Maybe you can ask something which is very important for a doctor to know. Okay, and maybe he don't want his partner to know about it. Okay, so you have here you have lose that you have lose those points. Okay, then you have to ask, and he will explain that this comes under patient safety. Okay, so you do ask about in the last 6 months, have you been like this partner is for 2 months, what about in the last 6 months? Yeah, how many partners in the last 6 months? Okay, so STI, he explained about STI, had STI, was well treated, that's it. Then you have to counsel about the barrier method. Okay, you can use, ask him to use barrier method even with the sex toys. If you think that sex toys is a cause of infection, okay, then you can say the barrier method, use barrier, use condom with these sex toys. Okay, for a better lubrication, for the prevention of infection. You don't know about these materials, you don't know whether you're allergic to these materials. Okay, you can say about it. There is nothing, that point is not mentioned anywhere. This is just a common sense. Okay, and then you can so you have inquired about gender assignment surgery, you have inquired about hormones, you have inquired about medication, you have asked about allergies. These men are not skipped from the smears, not skipped. You have to inquire. He is 22. He is 22. This is a journal template. But I put here because I don't want this point to be forget. Because most of the time they have the male partner and the female partner. So they should continue their smear. You have to reinforce. You should continue your smear. Even sometimes he will say, no, I'm only having one partner. So still you can say you are still not exempt. You're still not exempt. Because you know what, this human papillomavirus, they stay for 20 years even. Okay. So still they are not exempt. Okay, you can say, okay, with your permission, can I check your genital specialist letter on the system? You can say even not says it doesn't matter because he presented in emergency. You have to deal with the emergency. Okay, so examination, local examination, feel lump. I want to feel lump, assess the size, take the swab if any discharge. And you know what, Sanam, it's really important to do speculum in these men because sometimes they have a foreign body inside, you know?
Oh, yes.
Inside. So small speculum with a lubricant. Small speculum with a lubricant. Okay. So it's really important to do. In rest of the lady, you cannot do. But these sort of, because they're using the foreign material, they're using some sex toys. So you have to go for it. Okay. So there are certain sort of the certain test which is recommended every 6 months. I'm not saying that in this task you have to offer these tests. It's just for
because I know this we should do, but वो Casey Bartholin episodes का था, मैंने कहा पता नहीं करना है नहीं करना है. Okay. Anyhow, it's a journal template.
Asking smear would offer. Rukaiya, I've just put this point here because this is a journal template. I don't want this point to be forget from the side. So that's why I put it here on the template. I know he's 22. Okay. So this is just okay. So Dr. Lina, what is significant of having a partner with him? Should we have specified warm at that time? There would be some. Huma, they do understand. They do understand. Even if you could speak only 1 or 2 lines, I want to discuss some very, very important. I want to ask some of the very important questions from you. Maybe related to your lifestyle. Maybe related to your sex life. Will that be okay if I discuss in front of your partner? Okay. You have to do this because otherwise you will lose your point. You will lose point from the patient safety. Okay, and even it will be hard for you to continue the consultation. Okay, so these are the tests like renal profile, liver functional test, fasting blood glucose, lipid profile, thyroid functional test, estrogen. In emergency, in gynae emergency, no one expects you. Even in real exam scenario, no one expect you to offer these tests to her. It's just because, just a sort of information that they have to undergo all these tests after every 6 months for 3 years to monitor the treatment side effect. This is not your job. This is the job of gender specialist, okay? So offer suitable contraception because pregnancy is still possible and he is on testosterone therapy and it is fetotoxic. Okay, so it also comes under the patient safety. Okay, so in communication, the nurse and the gender specialist, even you can add consultant here. Okay, so Sanam explained about the Bartholin gland. Sanam, please, for the next time, try to draw it. Okay, try to use a visual aid. Okay, the gland lies near the entrance of, you cannot use the word of vagina, use the word of genital opening. Okay, lies near the entrance of genital opening. They make fluid that lubricate that opening, or inside. Sometimes tiny tube that carry fluid from the gland become blocked. This causes swelling, which you can feel called Bartholin cyst. So when he asked about why I'm having this, okay, then you can say like, because you haven't asked from me, but in my history, I have to tell you that I have 2-3 sexual partners in the last 3 months. Okay, so those who are having multiple sexual partners are increased risk of Bartholin gland or Bartholin abscess. Okay, and you are 22 years old, so you are at higher risk of acquiring sexually shared infection, and you also had the STI in the past, so still you are more at risk of recurrent infection. Okay, so one of the organisms is chlamydia, even E. coli, a lot of these organisms there, but you have find the risk factor in him.
Yeah.
Yes, he is using the sex toys. Yeah, with the sex toys, like, so if they are not, you can ask him to be maintain to maintain his hygiene, use sex toys or disposable sex toys, but they won't expect you these things. Actually, they won't expect you to speak about these sort of things. Okay, so treatment option, yes, antibiotics. Okay, and when he said like, okay, so I'm in pain, I can't drive, okay, then you can say, oh my, okay, if you're so much in pain, we will give you an antibiotic for 24 hours. I will keep you admitted, and in the morning we will drain your excess, because he presented at 1 a.m. at night. You are not going to do this procedure at night. Okay, give him antibiotic for 24 hours and then drain the abscess in the morning by word catheter. Okay, then you can explain about the it's very straightforward procedure. We will give a small cut on the area of abscess, and it will be drained, and small flexible tube with a small balloon inserted to create a passage, and it will be then filled with saline to hold it in place. Okay, so left in place for 3 weeks, then it can fall out. Okay, and explain about the red flag sign. Must be back home. If you have any pain, any fever in the discharge, you have to report back to us. There is a 4 in 100 risk of recurrence. And the last resort is marsupialization it's for recurrent abscess. For you, the treatment antibiotic, if you want to go for that, I will prescribe 7 days, 7 days course of antibiotics. If you are very concerned about that, I will keep you admitted, give you 24 antibiotic, and drain the abscess in the morning by word catheter. Okay, so this is all about this template.
Okay. Thank you, Alina. I just want to ask you one question that most of the time we need to tell them regarding, like aapne kaha ki, okay, vagina, we can say that internal organs, yeah, outer parts, yeah, inner parts,
you can say down below,
yeah, down
genital,
below. ये मैं क्या or if she's telling, you told me that why in me, कुछ आपने इस तरह कुछ कहा ना, you were telling that what do you mean by me, what do you, उसका फिर what we will say like that means.
Sorry, I didn't.
You were saying, you were telling me na, I was telling you that, see, person like you, so you said that, what do you mean by that thing? So usko matlab, how will you reply?
It's not related to this task, Sanam. It's not related to this. Always speak in general. Always speak in general. Okay. You can say that the chance of having the Bartholin abscess is 1 in 100. I'm so sorry, Mr. John, that this happened with you. That's it. Okay. I'm so sorry this happened with you. Okay? Don't say a person like you. If you will say this, why me? Why a person like me? Because they're very sensitive. They're very sensitive. Okay? And they will try their level best to confuse you. So don't be confused. Use the thing in general. It's 1 to 2 in 100. So unfortunately, this happened with you. If you will say, why happened with me? Then you can say, because you're having 2 to 3 sexual partners in the past 6 months. Previous risk of STI, your age is 22, slightly high risk of this infection, but don't worry. There's a very good treatment options available, and you can get rid of that in the next few days. So don't worry at all. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so any question asked about gender phobia? Any please, like you have just 10 minutes. Okay, so focus on the current problem. If you talk about a lot of things which is not much related, which is not much related to the current task, okay, then you will lose your point. You have to cover all points which is in the templates. Okay, we admit or send patient home with antibiotic. Okay, it all depends. If he is not in much pain, and then you can send him back with antibiotics and explain about the red flag sign when he has to report back. If you feel that he's so much pain, he's not able to walk, he's not able to sit, he's very anxious, then you have to admit him and give 24 hours covers of antibiotic, and then go for the surgery in the morning. Okay. Cervical smear should be offer. You are not going to offer. This is what from the side of GP. You can say, you can just explain him that is really important. You are not exempt from that. I'm going to write to your GP, so he will send you the letter for the cervical smear. Okay. He. Please don't use she. He. You have to use word he. Otherwise, he will be panic. He's a trans man. Okay. Okay, so
ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yeah, what? Sorry.
Ma'am, I had a doubt. Ma'am, this situation is very tricky, and if we do happen to make the role player angry, is there any way to fix it? As in, if we say something and they get angry or something.
That. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. John. You feel like that. It is not something which is really specific with you. I'm really sorry that you feel like that. Give me a chance so that I can explain you in a better way. Please give me a chance. You can apologize. You can always apologize if you feel that he's angry. Okay, you can see, Mr. John, I can see you looks very angry. Please give me a chance. I will try my level best to explain you in a better way. Okay?
All right.
I don't want you to feel like that. It's not like that. Okay, I'm sorry. Apologies. You can say it.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so Sanam, for example, you are sitting in sub-fertility clinic, okay?
Yeah.
And the same class man, but with no symptoms of Bartholin cyst, okay, with the partner, okay? And they are presented for with the main presenting complaint of sub-fertility, okay? And the lady, his partner, she's above 40 years of age, and she already tried IVF 2 times, and she's at risk of premature ovarian failure. After 40 years, the quality of egg is not optimal. So now this is the time you have. He's very anxious, and you have to explain. You have to explain him about the options which are available. Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, I will ask him that he's taking testosterone and in how much dose, because it will also depend that how much dose, if he's taking high dose or what. And then we need to stop that testosterone for at least 3 months. And then the options will be, I will explain him that the testosterone will reduce the quality and the growth of the follicles, though, because the growth is affected. But the follicles are there, they are not depleted. So we need to stop the testosterone at least 3 months. And then we can do for him the ovarian stimulation by giving the hormones, and then oocyte cryopreservation will be done by monitoring TVS, and in total period, it will be 5 weeks. I will explain him that. And then the other option will be, I will tell him if the eggs are, follicles are not means develop well, we can take an ovarian tissue cryopreservation by taking a strip of the ovarian tissue, and we will just preserve it. And then whenever she will be having a family, plan a family, we can use that eggs if she will be having a uterus. And if she want to carry like that, or he want to carry like that, then he can go ahead, or either he can go with surrogacy or with the partner, he can do IVF. Or the last option is adoption for like for always others. Yeah.
Excellent, Sanam. You're more good in sub-fertility, to be honest. Okay.
If you will ask me structured discussion, I know all the talk. I will tell you, but the patient simulation task is difficult for all of us.
I know it's very tricky. I know it's very tricky. Okay, so I have given this task before because I want you to be well prepared, but still you lose some of the important points. still you
Yes,
use.
yes.
And
Mm.
yeah, but I know that inshallah something related to this one will come in the exam. You people can do it. Now I know that. Okay, so the other thing is that Asya asked the question that in exam it was trans woman. So Asya, like it's very less likely that you can see trans woman, because in the trans woman, they're basically internally male. So they have a male internal genitalia and external some sort of surgeries. So you know what, you cannot examine them. Have you get my point? It's really hard. It's less likely in NHS, these sort of the patients straight away go towards a surgical emergency and then reviewed by the plastic surgeons, not by the gynecologist. Okay, so I asked from my colleague who appeared in the exam, either in the scenario the role play was a trans man or trans woman. They said it was trans men, not trans women. I think this is a mistake. Okay, this is a mistake, because if you can think logically it's less likely you can see. In previously in the last 1 month, I have seen 3 couples, to be honest, 3 couples, and all were trans men. Okay. And then I asked from my colleague, my senior, my consultant about that. They said all trans women go straight away towards the surgical A&E, not towards the gynae A&E. Okay, I hope
Alina, yeah, I'm sorry to disturb you. I just read in the talk article that the trans women who have undergone this reconstruction surgery, they can present in the gynae clinic with vaginal discharge, dyspareunia, and yeah, 2 things more common.
But you know what, Saddam, I'm talking about this Bartholin, my dear.
This is something different. Yeah, but in case this is
but it all depends upon the protocol. Maybe in my hospital, like these sort of the cases straight away goes towards the surgical emergency, and then they call us to review the patient in the form of MTD, because these patients need MTD approach. It's not a single approach, it's an MTD approach. Okay, so in Bartholin, in terms of Bartholin, yeah, I just want to tell everyone, it's very it's a sort of mistake, I think, in your, I don't want to use the word that, okay, because it's not being allowed by RCOG. I think it's a mistake, because if you can think logically, how can a man biological men present Bartholin?
Gland will not be there, na? Matlab, Bartholin gland female mein hi hogi, na? Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, it would be in the female. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's less.
Thank you.
I tried to do the task in the similar manner. Okay, and you have to follow this template. If you will follow this template, I believe you are going to score 100% marks. To be honest.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay. Thank you, Alina. Thank you so much.
Okay, so in terms of
one more question, ma'am. Not regarding this topic, ma'am. In subfertility, if there is a male infertility patient, should we examine that male, ma'am?
We usually not examine the subfertility clinic. We usually not examine male in the subfertility clinic, to be honest.
So we should not tell them. We like to examine you in front of chapter. We should not tell, ma'am.
We have to examine the female, and for the male, give me some time. I will ask from someone, because in my hospital, I used to attend subfertility clinic. Let me confirm, because I think one case they have by the andrologist. I think they should be examined by the male andrologist, because you know what, you are gynecologist. You don't know much about the male anatomy, to be honest.
Correct, ma'am. But when male infertility, when we ask questions to that patient, my male partner, will it be a separate? We have to talk to him, or should we examine him? Because one case presentation is like that. Okay, I'll check with you.
Okay. Yeah, because you are gynecologist, you are more specialized in female anatomy, female external genital tract, internal genital tract, and all of these steps. You are not experienced in examining male, and in any of our books, nothing is related to male internal organs. Okay, so I don't think it makes some sense, because in my hospital subfertility, we usually examine female, not male. Male should be examined by andrologist. So straight away refer to the andrologist, and then if we found some problem in the semen count or some semen analysis, then we straight away refer them to male andrologist. Okay, so don't offer examination in the exam to male.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, Asya, you are right. Okay, so Cheryl said there is a recall with neovaginal prolapse in transgender. So this was a wrong recall. And actually, Cheryl, I don't want to use the word. I'm not being allowed from the side of RCOG. So because if I will use this word, and they can cancel our registration. So this is how, I can say it's a similar one. I've asked for my colleague who just recently appeared in the exam, or I'll try to make the template like that. Okay, so do follow it. Okay, so in terms of subfertility, Sanam, very well done. You have explained about all options just for the revision purpose. Okay, so the one thing is that if a trans man come and he asked about option, one of the option is definitely that the partner can conceive with the donor sperm. Okay, if she is having a very good quality eggs. Okay, the other option are he can, even if he is having uterus, he can conceive with the donor sperm, but the hormone treatment can be interfere with the endocrine control of gametogenesis. So it is ideal for the patient to offer gamete storage before commencing hormone treatment. So this is, which is something really ideal. Okay, so for those patients already using cross-sex hormone, it is recommended that therapy is interrupted for 3 months to allow the reversal of treatment-induced side effect, because I have explained that if he conceived with the testosterone therapy, there is a risk of embryo toxicity. Okay, it's embryo toxic. It can cause certain abnormalities in the baby. Okay, so the other option is oocyte cryopreservation, and the partner can conceive with his eggs. This is another option that the partner can conceive if the partner eggs is not of good quality with the eggs of the donor. Sorry, with the eggs of the the partners, with the partner's eggs. Okay, oocyte. Ovarian tissue cryopreservation, access to NHS funding is determined by a clinical commissioning group. They are going to decide about that, and provision of funding varies in different regions. In some regions, NHS funding is available for fertility preservation and storage, but patients have to self-fund future treatment using store, and it's a £14,000 per annual they have to pay. So it's a huge and big amount. Okay, so if he will ask about this funding and all of these things, you have to say the clinical commissioning group will decide. And there are certain regions in NHS, they offer the funding, they offer some of the fertility preservation options, but it all depends what they offer you. Maybe you have to spend some money for that. Okay, the normal maximum duration of gamete storage is 10 years. However, in case of transgender, it can be to the maximum 55 years of age. Okay, so many Sanam mentioned about adoption. Yeah, definitely is another option. Adoption and foster care. You can use the word foster care because nowadays it's very common in UK, foster care. Okay, many trans men choose to chest feed their infants even after having undergo chest masculinization surgeries. Okay, this is all about the subfertility. Any questions, everyone? I would be happy to answer.
Doctor, can you please narrate from beginning, because there were some internet issues, at least key points. It's very interesting.
The first thing is that if the partner is able to conceive, then she can easily be conceived with the donor sperm. Okay, either with IUI or either with IVF, the partner. If the partner is not able to conceive with her own eggs, the second option you can give to him is that he can conceive with the donor sperm, because it's the least expensive option. If he is having uterus, then he can conceive with the donor sperm. Okay, but if he wants to conceive, he has to stop the therapy at least few months. Otherwise, this testosterone can cause it's embryo toxic for the fetus. Okay, other option is he can give his eggs to the partner, so the partner can conceive. Okay, this is another ad. Otherwise, the partner has to pay for the donor eggs and has to pay for the donor sperm. So it can make the cost more higher. Okay, so he can give the eggs to the partner. The third option is ovarian tissue cryopreservation. So this is something which is still, under the discussion. In HIFA. The clinical commissioning group, at the basic one, they are going to decide about that. Maybe they have to pay for this. Okay, maybe some part, maybe 50%, maybe 40, maybe 20. But some of the centers offered it free as well. But there's a long waiting list, particularly after COVID. There's a very long waiting list. Okay, so normal maximum duration of gamete storage is 10 years. However, in case of transgender, it can be like up to 55 years. Okay, so many trans men can chest feed their infant. Don't use the word breast for them. They can chest feed even after having a chest surgery. Okay, is it clear now to all of you? Any question up till now? Anything which is not clear?
Embryo or storage of ovum, madam? Which storage?
Yeah.
Storage of embryo?
Storage of embryo is an also option. Storage of ovum is an option for them. It all depends. Like, yeah, it's an option basically. But the clinical commissioning group is going to decide about that.
And that is maximum for 10 years, is it?
For usual couple is 10 years. For transgender is for 55 years.
Okay, both like ovum and embryo
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. And any other question, then we all will have a 5 minutes break and then we continue with the next task. Okay. Any other question? And today we already only discuss about the trans men. In our inshallah paid session, we will discuss about the trans woman, the problems related to the trans woman. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Ruqayya. Okay, so next, Asma. Hello, Asma. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Alina.
Hello. Okay. So it's time for the break, and Asma is going to tell you people about our new upcoming courses. Okay, Asma, continue.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in and participating. I must say we are having a great audience today. I would also like to thank Dr. Alina for this wonderful session. This side, Asma, the course coordinator from the team MedExam Expert. Today, I'm here to guide you about how you can join our course for the crash course. That is starting from 23rd September, and the duration of this course is 1.5 months. So we have only 18 seats in our crash course for focused preparations and one-to-one feedback from our expert mentors. So now let me tell you about the mentors of this course. We have Dr. Pooja Sharma, Dr. Zaid Qureshi, and Dr. Alina Shirazi. So now let me give you a brief introduction of our course mentors. Dr. Pooja Sharma is our lead mentor of MRCOG 3 courses. She is working in Inuit, Singapore, and also she is the author of 3 books. Dr. Zaid Qureshi is our senior tutor for MRCOG, MRCPI, APCOG, FCPS courses. Also, she is the RCOG examiner. Dr. Alina Shirazi, that you all are familiar with, she is also a well-qualified tutor for MRCOG, FCPS, APCOG, MRCPI courses. She is currently working in NHS. So now let me tell you about the features of this course. By joining this course, you will get to know how to get through the task with pausing on all the domains. You will get to practice a greater number of homework tasks and get the feedback from our expert mentors. You will be focused to more than 100 tasks. All the difficult topics will also be mentored by our expert mentors. You will be added to a separate group with 24/7 Telegram assistants. You will get the access to our extensive collection of study materials and the session recordings. So we will be there with you on this journey till you clear your exams. So now let me share the schedule of this course. So now you must be thinking why you have to choose MedExam Expert for your course. So here are some splendid feedbacks from our last and the current batch students. Thank you so much, Dr. Seher, Dr. Reena, Dr. Sam, and all for such a positive feedback. We will also always be there to help you all. Now it's time for the care for all the participants who are listening to me. We are giving $100 off on our actual course fee. That is $600. So after this discount, you will get enrolled into the course in only $500. So now, how can you avail the discount and how you can register to our course? To register to our course, what you have to do, you have to sign up to our website. So after clicking on sign up, you have to enter your details and you have to create your account. After creating your account, you have to click on course catalog, and then you have to click on MRCOG3 Crash Course November 21. After this, you have to click on Get this course, and then you will see the payment details on your screen. So now, to avail the discount, what you have to do, you have to apply the coupon code GIFT100. So after entering the coupon code, you have to click on Validate. And when you will click on Validate, the course price will change from $600 to only $500. And then you have to proceed with your normal payment details. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you so much for this. Okay, so if you people have any questions, please write in the chat box about our course. And we're going to start our cash course soon. And it will be like the similar way that we are nowadays doing in a free session with the camera, inshallah. Okay, so again, back towards, just 1 second. Just a moment. I'm going to share my screen, 1 second. Okay, so who wants to present this task? Who wants to be the presenter of this task? Anyone?
Yes, me.
Can I present?
Rabia.
Who is there? Sorry.
Rabia.
Dr. Rabia, okay, you're waiting for this. Okay, Dr. Rabia, you have 2 minutes. Okay.
Should
And
I switch in on my video?
yes, please. Yes, 1 moment. Let me switch my video as well. Okay.
Okay, please ignore my face.
Okay. So where is your video? Just 1 second. Can't see your video, Dr. Rabia.
Yeah, I have switched on my camera.
Yes, I can see. Dr. Rabia.
Hello.
Thank you. Oh, hi.
Dr. Lina. All right. Okay.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Should we start?
Yeah, just I'm going to you 2 minutes first, okay? Take you 2 minutes.
Please, I want to, yeah, please slide. Thank you. My time starts now.
Yeah, it started.
Okay.
Take you 2 minutes. Dr. Abhay, I think there is one line missing. I think there is a typing mistake. And your junior wants to learn about cord blood sampling, okay?
Yeah, I thought that this station belongs to them,
Yeah.
that topic.
Okay. He wants to learn about cord blood sampling. I think it's
all
missing.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah, Dr. Lina.
Oh,
Good afternoon.
start.
I am Rabia ST5 and you?
Hi, doctor. I'm Lisa.
Yeah, good. You are Elena.
I'm Lisa, ST1.
Do you hear? Eliza. Okay, Eliza. Welcome here. And please let me know how can I help you today, Lisa.
Yes, actually, the problem is yesterday I've assisted a cesarean section. It was an emergency cesarean section because of failure to progress. And I was with my senior doctor, and after the baby delivered, my senior doctor asked me to do the cord blood sampling. So this was it was like for me the first time. So I feel really embarrassed in front of my senior that I don't know how to do that because it's a new thing for me. So today I just want to learn about it, how to do, what is the benefit, why we're doing this cord blood sampling. So I just want to know about it. I want to learn.
Okay, Lisa, I really appreciate your gesture, and I can see that you are very passionate and enthusiastic doctor. But no need to be worried that you felt very ashamed on it or embarrassed at that time, because with the passage of time, we will learn to the perfection one day. Okay,
Oh, thank you so
Lisa,
much.
please let me know how the things are going in the department, my dear.
Yes, everything is fine here. It's just been few days back. I had an induction period, and everyone is so supportive here. And my line manager, he asked me that I can consult with any of my colleagues if I feel difficulty. So that's why I'm here in front of you because I want to learn today.
All right, great. Lisa, I will try my level best to explain you how should we take the fetal cord blood sampling because it's most commonly performed procedure these days in NHS. I will first, before I proceed, I would like to tell you about my the steps through which I will tell you this procedure. I will tell you the indications of this procedure, then how we'll take the cord blood sampling, then I will check your understanding side by side, and I will show you on a specimen how should we take this sample and how it should be stored, and analysis is done and some sort of the interpretation of the results, and I will tell you I will check your feedback at the end, and I will provide you certain information resources at the end. So how does it sound to you, Lisa?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. This is what I want to know.
All right. So Lisa, this cord blood sampling, would you please tell me that what sort of the emergency cesarean section you had assisted yesterday?
Failure to progress.
All right. It was failure to progress, and your consultant or said you to take the fetal cord blood sampling.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. And so, do you know about the sequence of events in that cesarean section? It was emergency cesarean section. All
Yes,
right. Okay.
category 1.
Thank you.
Category 2,
Thank
sorry.
you, Lisa. Can I have an idea about your knowledge about this fetal blood sampling?
As far as I just know about it, we take a sample from our tree, from vein, and just check about pH. Just check pH. Is it there's some acidosis in baby or not?
All right. So there are certain indications. You have fair enough idea about this fetal blood sampling, but let me add in your knowledge. Okay. The thing is that fetal blood sampling is indicated in certain situations. Okay. The first thing, as you have seen the emergency cesarean section yesterday, so it's one of very important indication. In every emergency cesarean section, we need to take this sample. Any procedure which is related to vaginal breech delivery, instrumental delivery, and any labor which has the baby has pathological CTG, and whenever there is APGAR score less than 5 at 1 minute and less than 7 at 5 minutes. If the mother has medical disorder like diabetes and thyroid, so these are other indications for fetal blood sampling. Okay. So any high risk pregnancy in which we need to see whether the baby, what is the baby blood pH, So we need to take fetal blood sample so that the legitation can be minimized in the future. Okay. Uh, so the fetal blood sampling, it required certain the equipment. Okay. So this equipment is one is the 15 to 30 centimeter length of the cord of the baby is required first of all. I wish I could have a specimen of that so that I may show you. Okay. So let's do you have let's imagine about that. Okay. So this is the length of the cord, and you know that there is one vein and two arteries. The arteries in the babies are opposite to the adults. They carry the oxygenated blood and the vein oxygenated blood. Okay. The arteries, there are two arteries, and these the oxygenated blood. We need to check the pH of the baby's blood from that. Okay. Yeah, this is very good image. Thank you very much. There is a single vein. You can see this big one is a vein, and it is a small vessel alongside this bigger one. This is called artery. All right. So these two smaller arteries, you can see this white one, smaller arteries. So we need to clamp the cord from both sides, from the both ends first of all. Okay. And you see equipment, you need to take a kit which has a heparinized syringe with a needle and a guard in it. Okay. And please check that first of all the blood gas analyzer should be ready beforehand, before taking this sampling. Okay. Because we need to process this sample within 60 minutes maximum, and it's preferable to analyze this sample within 10 minutes. Okay. Do you understand, Lisa, what I'm saying?
I get it. Yes, I do understand.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. In the next step, what we do is the kit. Of course, we wear a disposable gown with proper gloving, having a sterilized surface with the sheet in which the cord is placed. We should wear a mask and the goggles as well, because accidentally this blood can flush into your eyes. Okay. So this splash into your eyes should not occur. Okay. Or these goggles will protect your eyes. So we will open this heparin may be in a form of a liquid or maybe in the form of the powder. Any kit you can take. Okay. So we will first unwrap the packet and we'll bring out the syringe, and then we will attach the needle with the syringe with the guard on the needle guard as well. Okay. So I preferably take the sample from the cut end, which you have cut from the baby side. Okay. So from this, you first identify the smaller artery. This is a small one. It is difficult sometimes to take sample from it, but with the passage of time, you will be expert. And you find difficulty, please do ask.
Why we have to take arterial sample first and venous afterward? Why?
All right. The arterial sample, because in case because this is the most reliable indicator of the fetal pH, so that it may not become contaminated the venous blood which you have already taken. So it is required that you need to take arterial sample first. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So first prick the needle superficially, so that you may not prick the cross prick the artery or prick the vein. Do not put your hand underneath your cord. Otherwise, accidentally your hand will be pricked. Okay. And then take only 0.5 cc, and immediately you need to push the plunger upward so that the heparin would be removed, as a result of which the blood will not clot. Okay. So first take the arterial sample, and then put the needle with the guard on it, and then you can take the do not wait for the venous sample to push the plunger or bring the heparin out. Okay. First prepare one sample and then take separate sample from the vein. Okay. And send it for the blood gas analysis. And you will of course, this cord can be stored up to 60 minutes at room temperature, and if you put in the ice, you can store it for the 3 hours. Okay. And then when the sample results will be available. You have already a sample analyzer is ready, and you have already informed the respiratory team already. So when they will give you the results back, please note down the results at the back of the partograph. There is a table and behind it, and then put the results back into the envelope, intrapartum brown envelope, in which the neonatal findings or the labor findings are there. Okay, so the maternity record, you should to put this results into the maternity record as well as in the neonatal record. And if you see the pH is less than 7.2 and the base X deficit is more than 12, so you need to inform pediatrician immediately. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so have you understood, my dear?
Yeah, I understood
Lisa?
that. Okay, so
Any
what
other
is the
question?
benefit? What is the benefit that we can just inform the peers once the results will be of the pH would be back, or what?
The benefits of fetal blood sampling?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually it tells us that the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy or any problems, the cerebral palsy, to do occur in the future, they are not related to the intrapartum events. Okay, so it will help us out, and of course it will lessen the agitation, and of course it will keep us safe in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Abia. Time finished.
Okay, so could you please reproduce it for me? I'm going to provide you this information leaflet, and there are certain
Time finished, but still I can
resources
reproduce
also.
it. I learned about the technique, how to do the cord blood sampling. First of all, I have to do clamp the cord from the two side. I need 20 to 30 centimeter of the cord. First take arterial and then take venous to avoid the risk of contamination, and send it for the cord blood gas analysis and inform peds accordingly. Yeah. Is that it?
Oh, great. You are really passionate and a keen learner. And please see me next time. You can assist me in taking cord blood sampling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abia. Thank you so much. Thank you. And it's time to feedback. So you have to give the feedback to yourself first, then I will give you the feedback. Okay.
I have never seen how to take this cord blood sampling. So I have just seen the videos, and I have seen read an hospital protocol. Okay. However, I try to reproduce, and but I think it could be polished by your input, because you are working over there. And
yeah. Actually, Dr.
because
Abia,
I don't
I feel
have the sample. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that RCG do ask about those things in which they are currently focusing. So currently they are focusing much more on this cord blood sampling, because it's really important in terms of medical legal purpose. You know what, NHS has to pay a lot of penalty just because of a poor documentation, just because of these things. If they have not been done very properly, then there is a risk that maybe the reports would not be accurate. Maybe the doctor would not be able to justify himself or herself. Okay, so it is just to figure out. It is just, and secondly, that is also helps in the process of audit. Okay, so that's why nowadays our RCG focusing a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and so that's why I've chosen this topic. This is not a recall. I haven't seen such sort of task in the past paper, but I believe because nowadays everyone is focusing, everyone wants like GP trainee ST123 to be very expert in doing cord blood sampling. So I believe that this topic should be covered at least in free session, so everyone know about how to do it, the technique, and what are the benefit and anything related to it. ASEA is basically by the both can do, doctors or midwives. Okay, so low risk ladies used to be delivered by the midwife. Okay, so it's like you cannot, routinely we cannot see it that midwives are taking it, but they can do it, or doctors, yes. Okay, so Dr. Abhi, you followed the template really very well. The first thing I just want to tell you that just after giving a bit of information, just stop there and ask your colleague either to repeat it and either ask a very, very easy questions from her. Okay, you can ask her, okay, do you know what is this cord blood? Do you know what is included in the cord? She will say, yes, I know 2 or 3. Very good, Lisa. You're very good learner. Okay. Then you can ask, do you know in which syringe we can take the sample? Okay, if she know about it, then you can say, well done, Lisa, well done, you are very enthusiastic, I really appreciate, you're a good learner. Okay, so you have to ask her small questions with her, so she will not be bored. Okay, and helpful for you in the teaching as well. If you think that she know about the indication, you can ask about the indication. If she know about the indication, there's no need to go for it. It will save your time. Okay. So you have done the introduction very well. Rapport building. Hello, I'm Alina, ST5 for this hospital use. She said, yes, my name is Lisa. How would you like me to call you? Nice to meet you, Lisa. There is no handshake, but you can smile. Okay, there is no handshake because it's a virtual exam this time. Yeah. Break the ice. I heard that you have recently joined the department. So warm welcome from my side, Lisa. How is this going so far? Are you happy there? Dr. Abi, you have covered all points of the template. Lisa, we are a team. If you have any concerns, feel free to contact any one of us. We will be more than happy to help you and make you comfortable as much as possible. Okay, Lisa? Okay, so I understand you want to learn about the cord blood sampling. Can you tell me why you are interested in? And she explained about that I had seen yesterday the cord blood sampling. I want to know about it. You can understand, I understand these are the new things for you. I want to reassure you with practice and experience, you will learn everything, and definitely it will take some time. So don't worry, we are here to help you out. Okay. And then you can say, Lisa, do you know about cord blood sampling? What you have already learned about it? So she know that from where we can take the sample and analyze, and then you can just appreciate her. So today we will discuss the cord blood sampling, the technique, how to avoid error, how to interpret the results. Then we will give, don't forget about the feedback. Then we will give the feedback to each other, and I will provide you essential reading for the future learning. Will that be okay, Lisa? Then she will say yes. Okay. So this is what the picture, the table basically from the NICE guideline. Okay. So the pH is considered as a normal pH. If the pH is more than 7.25. And you can say, Lisa, do you know about the normal fetal pH? If she knows, she will say, yes, I know it's more than 7.25. Well done, Lisa. Do you know about the borderline? If she will say no, so it's between 7.21 to 7.24. And less than 7.20 is considered as an abnormal pH. Okay, so for cord blood sampling, we only count pH and base excess. I'm only going to talk about pH today because at your level is more important to know about pH. Okay, so then you can again, okay, Lisa, I'm again going to repeat 7.25 is normal, 7.21 to 24 is borderline, and less than 7.20 is normal. Okay, and you can also say, okay, Lisa, can you please repeat this for me? You can ask her to repeat it. Okay, because you have to reinforce learning. In the teaching, you can get a separate points for reinforcement. Okay, so why it is useful? Actually, Lisa, there are four benefits of doing the cord blood sampling. The first thing is that it's going to help in the newborn assessment. Okay, if the cord pH is show the baby is acidic, like for example, if the pH is less than 7.20, okay, the first thing is that you can explain to the neonatologist. The neonatologist can assess the baby according to it and ask about the risk factors. Okay, so it's helpful in the neonatal assessment. It's helpful in the neonatal management. For example, baby born with a very good APGAR, very good APGAR, 9 and 10, and the cord pH is less than 7.20. It's abnormal. Then the baby doctor, the neonatologist, are not going to discharge the baby. They will keep the baby under observation. Okay. Have you understand, Lisa? Then you can say, just 1 second, I have a very urgent call from my hospital. Just one moment. Okay, so the first benefit is it helps in the neonatal assessment, newborn assessment. The second is neonatal management. The third is audit. It is helpful in the process of audit in which we compare our practice with the standard. Okay, and it's also helpful to collect our maternity unit data. Okay, and you know what, Lisa? It also helpful to improve our you know what, it's helpful to improve the skills of our CTG. Okay. Okay, so it's helpful, you know, Lisa, it's going to helpful to improve our CTG skills. Okay, and also helpful in the medical legal purposes. For example, what happened is, for example, you know what, the cord blood gas result indicate that, like, you know what, in the cerebral palsy, 90% of the cases is because of intrapartum hypoxia. Antenatal hypoxia, and only 10% is because of the intrapartum hypoxia. Okay, and if someone complains after the delivery of the baby that the baby develops cerebral palsy, then this cord blood gas report is going to be helpful for you. Okay, I'm going to tell you how this cord blood gas report is going to tell you either it's an intrapartum hypoxia or either it's an antenatal hypoxia. Okay, if it's an intrapartum hypoxia, then it's avoidable. Okay, and if it's because of an antenatal hypoxia, then it's not avoidable. Okay, and how you are going to, if you think that the baby delivered with a poor ABCAR and the cord gas is showing intrapartum hypoxia, then you have to improve your CTG skills. Okay, Dr. Abe, have you understand it? You have to improve your CTG skills. Avoid it for the next time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that
first of all,
intervention can be taken.
Yeah, early intervention can be taken because this is an opportunity to improve. Okay, so it's helpful in the newborn assessment, neonatal management. Either the neonatologist will decide either to keep the baby admitted for the observation or not, audit, or for medical legal purposes. So these are the 4 benefits of doing the cord blood analysis. Okay, so this is a picture of a cord. This is a single vein, and there's 2 arteries. Okay. And I'm going to draw a picture for you. You can see these blue eyes, and this is one red, a large mouth. Okay. Remember, there are 2 small arteries and 1 large vein. Okay, so the clamping and the cutting. If you can see the picture, this picture. So first of all, you have to when the baby delivers, you have to isolate the segment of the cord and apply 2 sets of cord, like 2 clamps here towards the baby and 2 clamps here toward the side of cord insertion. Okay, so then you can cut from the center. So I'm sorry, not from the center, it's towards the side of the clamp, towards the baby side. Okay, and then you can take the sample. Okay, the question asked by Lisa was why we have to take the arterial first and venous later on. The Lisa, the point is vein is large and arteries are small. If you will take the sample from the artery first, there would be less bleeding from the cord. Okay, but if you will take the sample from the venous first and then arteries later on, there will be a heavy bleeding from the vein, very heavy bleeding from the vein, and it would be sometimes difficult to control. Okay, okay, Dr. Abia, have you understand
Will
it?
collapse, or there will be mixing of
Yes.
the blood. There will be mixing of that. Yeah. Okay.
There is no mixing. There is no mixing because arteries are separate and veins are separate. The only point is because if you will take the sample first from the vein is, you know, if you can see the size of the vein is of a bigger size as compared to the arteries. Okay, and you know what? The walls of the vein are thinner as compared to the arteries. Okay, if you take the sample from the veins and then afterward with the arteries, there will be heavy bleeding from the vein. And sometimes what happens is the flow of the blood is very fast in these veins, and there is splashing of the blood on the face. And this is what I've experienced personally as well. If you take the sample from the vein, there would be splashing of blood on the face, and sometimes it would be very embarrassing. Okay.
That's why Dr. Lina, I told about goggles and protective equipment.
Yeah, I know that. Okay, so you have to apply 2 clamps towards the baby side and 2 clamps towards the placenta side, and then you have to cut from. And even you can ask, okay, Lisa, I'm going to dry it for you. Can you tell me from where you have to cut the cord? Okay, so she will say here in between these 2 clamps. Okay, then you have to hand over the baby to the midwife. Okay, it should be cut in between these 2 clamps. Okay, and then you can take the samples. Okay, so take the sample from the artery first and veins later on. Okay, and there is another way. There is another procedure. Like there's 2 procedures basically from where you can clamp and cut the cord. Isolate the segment of the cord. Apply 2 sets of clamp like this and this. Cut the cord between the set of the clamp like from here, and then take arterial and venous sample. And second is just isolate the cord sample segment, apply 2 clamps together just like this, cut the cord between these clamps like this, hand over the baby, and then even if you don't want to apply these 2 clamps, you can take the arterial and the venous sample. Okay, and you know what, Lisa, even you can take the sample after the separation. If you think that the mother is not stable enough and mother is bleeding heavily and mother is having some collapse, then you can just remove the placenta, and then the midwife can take the cord, samples from the cord. Okay, the sample from the cord can even take afterward, even after the delivery of the placenta. Okay, so this is what the technique.
We don't need to cut the cord first.
No, there is in the here
cut the cord from the baby.
You can do like this. You can cut the cord and then take. You can cut the cord and then take. You can even remove the placenta, then you can take. Okay. Okay, so this is a way. Okay, Lisa, okay, can you tell me how to pass the needle? If you will have some sample, then you can say how to pass the needle, like this way or this way. If she will say like this, oh Lisa, it will cause some injury on your hand, and even you can incidentally take the sample from the vein. So there are chances when you pass the needle, you pass from artery directly towards the vein. Okay, so you have to take the sample like this. Okay, in inclined manner. You have to, Varna, in case of delayed cord blood, you have to document it, that you delayed for 1 minute or 2 minutes. You have to document it, so they will interpret according to that. The risk management team will interpret according to that. Okay. Okay, so if the cord has been clamped and cut, but there is a delay taking blood, and you are busy in carrying the woman, this is not a problem because blood will not clot while still in the cord. Okay, you can leave the cord up to half an hour at room temperature, and acid-base balance will not alter significantly over the period. Okay, so you can leave it. Okay, how you need to follow the specific instructions of your own blood gas analysis. There's a guideline sample. Dr. Abi explained about use of heparinized syringe. Okay, so you have to use a heparinized syringe. These are already available in the labor ward. Okay, so the midwife will give us the syringe at the time of the delivery. Okay, and they're already heparinized. You don't have to do it by yourself. We have already heparinized syringe in our theater or even in the delivery room. Avoid introducing bubbles. So you have to avoid the bubbles because otherwise it will disturb the cord blood gas sample. Okay, so accuracy of the result, blood gas analysis give accurate result. Okay, much bigger errors occur because of poor technique. Your results are only valid if good technique. So a technique I have explained how to pass the needle and how to take the sample. Keep the sample until you have satisfactory results. So you are not going to discard the sample. Take at least 2 mils of the blood in the syringe, and because few drops are you are going to use for the cord blood gas analysis. Okay, and you don't discard the sample and until you get the satisfactory result. Okay. Okay, so important thing, how you are going to differentiate, Lisa? Do you know how you are going to differentiate which is the arterial, which is a venous blood? Okay, so if you can see here in the picture, cord, arterial and venous blood of different color. If both sample same here, you have probably sampled the same vessel twice. Okay, so blood in the vein is oxygenated. Blood in the vein is oxygenated because it comes from the placenta. Okay, so it's like this sharp red color. Okay, and the blood in the arteries are deoxygenated, so it would be dark color. So there would be a difference in the color. So you will have an idea about that you have taken a correct sample. If it would be the same color, it's possibly that you have taken the sample from one vessel, maybe from the vein. Okay. Okay, so this is what, if you can see in the picture, venous blood is from the placenta, so it's a fresh red in color. Okay. Okay, so what's what the venous blood present? It present the venous blood is oxygenated by placenta, and arterial blood comes from the fetus. I'm going to show you in the picture. So arterial blood is basically from the fetus. Okay, so arterial blood is dark in color. So venous blood is going to tell us about the situation of the placenta. Okay, if the cord blood if the cord gases show the venous pH, venous acidosis, okay, venous acidosis, venous pH reduced, that means there is some placental insufficiency. Okay, if the cord gases show arterial acidosis, okay, arterial is the blood from the baby. Okay, if it's from the baby and is showing acidosis, that means the baby developed acidosis. Okay, it can be because of, you know, but cord compression, because some loop of cord around neck, because of some intrapartum events. Okay, so this is what they are going to help. That's why it is important to take the sample separately and label them properly. So venous blood is oxygenated by placenta. Arterial bloods come from fetus, present fetal condition more likely. So arterial is more going to help us, but still we need a venous sample to differentiate. Okay, a normal venous sample do not rule out fetal acidemia. Okay, because the arterial is going to help us. Is it clear, everyone? Dr. Abia, or any questions?
Yes, great, very clear.
Yes, Nilofer is a sort of insulin. There's a insulin syringe, you can use it. Yeah, but we have a separate syringe for that. It's not as small as insulin one. Okay, what information we can get if the difference between artery and the venous sample is large? Okay, for example, the venous pH is normal, and arterial pH is very reduced, and venous pH is normal. So there would be a large difference. Okay, there would be a large difference. So what is going to indicate? Is going to indicate two things: acute event or cord compression. Okay, if the venous pH is normal, that's mean the placenta is working well. That means there's no problem with the placental oxygenation. The placenta is giving the good oxygen towards the baby. And if the fetal pH is reduced, it can be because of placental abruption. It can be because of early separation of placenta. It can be because of cord compression. It can be because of loop of cord around neck. It can be because of oligohydramnios. It can be because of hyperstimulation of the uterus. So something which is related to intrapartum event. Okay, so fetal acidemia and labor. Okay, this is something you can avoid. You have to, if the baby delivered with such sort of thing, then what you are going to do is you have to focus more on the CTG. That means you haven't interpreted the CTG clearly. Okay, if the baby born with good Apgar, no problem. It doesn't mean that you haven't interpreted the CTG, because the baby with the good Apgar can have some of the acidosis because of the cord compression. Okay, but if there is a small difference between artery and vein sample, for example, artery pH reduce, venous pH also reduce. That means there can be the signs of placental insufficiency. But this, like we can say that it's the same sample taken from the one, like maybe the sample is taken from the veins. Okay, so you have to correlate with the risk factors. Okay, the acidemia with the small AV may suggest more long-standing problem. It means it suggests antenatal problem. Okay, so Lisa, you know, it's really important to take the sample from two, like arteries and veins. Then you have to compare between pH. If artery pH is reduced, venous is fine, that it can be because of acute event and the cord compression. If there is a very small difference, so it can be because of error. Someone has taken two venous sample, or it can be because of long-standing problems. So you can correlate with the clinical picture. You can correlate if the mother is hypertensive, if the mother is having the history of placental insufficiency, like the mother is having IUGR baby, oligohydramnios, then you can say, and if the pH is a very small difference between artery and venous sample pH, then you can justify. Okay, this is what the information we can get it. Thank you. This was the last slide. Okay, so any questions, anything which is not yet clear? Everyone, sorry, I got the call from the hospital. I don't know why they called me. I'm on the annual leave today. So that's why I stopped in between. So any questions up till now? Anyone?
Yeah, Dr. Reena, I want to know the resource of this information, from where I can get more information regarding cord blood sampling, because there is no guideline regarding this. Am I right?
Yeah, I know this. You know what, Dr. Rabia, it is all about the system. Okay, so I will try to share some of the slides because we have a special training in the perinatal, perinatal K2 training. Okay, so I have taken these screenshot from there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Because I have
Rajni.
searched a
Thank
lot and I haven't found any this information from.
But I believe that now
Thank
this
you very much.
presentation
It is very informative.
I think it's far enough to
Yes,
understand.
excellent, Dr. Lina. I'm very grateful to you.
Excuse me,
Very
Dr.
grateful
Lina.
to you. Thank you very
Hi,
much.
Dr. Lina. Thank you very
Yes.
much for this nice session. Just only
you so
a
much,
little
ma'am.
bit, yeah. So only a little bit, I would like to ask you that you told that if there is a small difference between the artery and vein, so there could be that placental insufficiency, that means hypertension or IUDR. And if there is a, abnormality in artery and venous is normal, so that means there is a fetal acidosis problem. So it could be from the oligohydramnios,
Yes.
yeah, oligohydramnios or uterine hyperestimulation syndrome or placental separation, whatever it is. So another one, you told big difference between the artery and vein. So what is the example it will be if it is big difference?
So if there is a big difference between artery and vein, so for example, venous blood is showing a normal pH and artery is showing acidosis. Okay. So, but the baby born with a very good APGAR and there's no risk factor in that lady because you have to correlate with the risk factors. No risk factors at all. Then you can say that it can be because, the mother, she, at the time of the second stage of labor, mother has to push a lot. At the time of pushing, there could be a cord compression. Okay, it can be because of the cord compression. It can be because of hyperstimulation of the uterus. It can be because of excessive maternal effort, excessive maternal pushing. Okay, so if the baby delivered and there's no risk factor in the mother, even if the arterial pH is reduced, the risk management team is not going to ask from you. It's not something which is abnormal. It's not considered as abnormal. But if the mother is having risk factors, for example, the mother is a case of preeclampsia. Okay, the mother is already having, for example, the mother is previous one cesarean section and then she delivered. Okay, so and there is a then you can for example, cord prolapse and you delivered the baby with the forceps delivery. It can suggest an acute event that placenta is having a very good supply. The placenta is having a very good supply towards the baby, but there is acute event occur. Acute event, uterine rupture. Acute event, placental abruption. Acute event, what? Cord prolapse. Okay, you have to correlate clinically. But if there's a small difference, the first possibility is that it's an error. Maybe someone has taken the sample from either the vein or the artery, 2 samples from this vein and either 2 samples from the artery. And if the difference is small, that there is a venous pH is reduced and arterial pH is also reduced. What does it mean? It means that the placenta coming from the blood coming from the placenta is also supplying less oxygen towards the baby. So it's the indicative towards the intrapartum hypoxia. Antenatal hypoxia. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lina, I have a question. Yes, Dr. Lina, the pH values which you have shown us on the slide, they are also the same for the fetal scalp sampling.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I know that.
It's the same. So the cord and the fetal scalp sampling pH interpretations are same.
Almost, yes, it's almost same.
Because the protocol which I have followed, they wrote about pH less than 7 is like suspicious of having acidosis.
You know what? I followed it because my hospital used to follow it. Is also in the NICE guideline. It's same as a fetal scalp pH. So that's why I've taken this table,
Okay.
Dr. Abir. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's no specific guideline. The only purpose to discuss this case here is because nowadays NHS focus a lot on this, and they have a special training for their juniors. And sometimes they do ask about these things in the exam, something which is commonly happening in RCOG or something which is commonly happening in NHS hospitals.
So, Dr. Lina, fetal scalp sampling and the fetal cord blood sampling, these two could help us to find out the cause.
To be honest, Dr. Abir,
acidosis?
nowadays many of the hospitals in NHS, they have abandoned the fetal scalp sampling. It's just because it's not going to help. It's not going to help. The management is not going to change according to them. Maybe soon they are going to remove it from the guidelines even. Okay. And second thing is that is maternal. You know what? Nowadays a lot of litigations, and sometimes the baby bleeding can't stop. And just because of to avoid these things, nowadays every NHS hospital, not every, like more than 50% of the NHS hospital have abandoned their fetal scalp sampling. My hospital is still doing that, still, but very, very like, you know, rare cases, not commonly. Because it's not going to change, according to them, it's not going to change the management. When I asked them, any of my consultants, why not we do fetal scalp sampling? So they said, then improve your CTG skills. If you have a very good CTG skills, you don't need to do that. Improve your CTG skills.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I am very clear now.
Okay, thank you everyone. Any other questions?
Excuse me, Dr. Alina. I'm a big fan of yours. So one quick question. The segment of the cord that we are going to take, I think 10 centimeter is sufficient because we have to leave some segment with the baby and some segment with the placenta.
Yes, 10 to 15 centimeters is sufficient. We usually not count it. We just see like it should be long enough so that we can take the sample.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So I hope you all enjoyed today's session and do give us the feedback. So because the feedback is really important to improve our skills. Okay, and if you have any question, you can drop in even now in the chat box and afterwards in our free group. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining.